A very good morning to you and welcome back to the show. How is everybody doing? How is your day going so far? We've had such amazing conversation and I just want to say a big thank you going out to every single one of you that have been a part of the conversation, that have been a part of the show so far. And if you're new to Relax Radio, if you're new to this platform, I just want to say Relax Radio basically is a community-based interactive radio station. And even though we call ourselves a radio, we're far from the ordinary radio channel, okay? Because we're all about sharing your thoughts and opinions with everybody listening in. And we're going to be talking about something that I would say is very, very sensitive and something that is plaguing the world right now. And that's with regards to the Afghanistan crisis. I do want to talk about the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, as you've already probably heard. And I want to give you the latest updates with regards to that situation, especially with regards to the whole refugee crisis that is probably being brought out by the whole Afghanistan situation. Now, we're going to be talking about that in a couple minutes, but I definitely want to know your thoughts and opinions. If you are living in a country that is offering a safe haven or offering asylum for any of these Afghan refugees, do you think that that's the right way to go about it? Or if you're living in a country where the borders are closed off to refugees, do you think that the situation needs to change? What do you think? What are your thoughts and opinions? Go ahead and let me know by leaving a comment down below or by calling me up on 07852 473 473. Now, with that being said, I also want to remind you to download our app because it's available absolutely free of charge on iOS and Android. So make sure that you download our app so that you can take us with you wherever it is that you go. All right, with that being said, let's get on into the conversation. And that's with regards to where does the world stand on Afghan refugees? Okay. Now, some countries, of course, have offered Afghans a safe haven. But like I said, other countries have closed their borders or are fortifying their borders with regards to the Afghan refugees, okay? And I think the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan is definitely raising fears of a possible humanitarian crisis that could see huge numbers of people trying to flee the country. You've, of course, seen the footage, and I think a lot of I think Nick spoke about it yesterday during the show. Sarah spoke about it during the show as well yesterday, and we've been talking about the Afghanistan crisis, the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. And we've told you how so many people, the day when the Taliban actually went to Kabul and took over the presidential palace, we spoke of how many people were scrambling to get out of the country, that how many families, little children, old people were trying to get out of the country to flee the Taliban, to flee, the situation of Afghanistan. Now, this, of course, resulted in a huge number of refugees, okay? People going into other countries seeking refugee status, and that has caused a lot of issues with other countries. And like I told you, a lot of the countries are opening up their borders for the Afghan refugees, whereas some other countries are saying, no, we can't accept any refugees. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. I think, okay, first to give you an idea, if you don't know what's happening, that's okay. What exactly happening is a group called the Taliban, which took control of Kabul on Sunday following a rapid nationwide offensive, has actually pledged not to seek retribution against officials who served the now deposed government headed by Ashraf Ghani. And what's crazy is that was the ex-president of Afghanistan. He, of course, fled the country as well as soon as the situation got bad. And yeah, the Taliban has also promised to grant amnesty to ex-Afghan army soldiers as well as contractors and translators who worked for international forces with the US-led coalition that invaded Afghanistan after the September 11, 2001 attacks. Now, that's a whole different conversation. I mean, I think a lot of people already have come into a conclusion as to where they stand with regards to who is at fault, and it's just like a big old blame game that's going on right now in the world. But I think the most important question that we need to answer is what's going to happen to the refugees that have fled Afghanistan. Okay, like I said, of course, some countries are offering refuge, but other countries have called for tougher border control. I think Iran had set up emergency emergency tents, but of course urged repatriation if and when safe. And of course, efforts are underway in three provinces bordering Afghanistan to set up temporary accommodation for a potential influx of Afghan refugees. Now, any Afghans who crossed into Iran would, once conditions, of course, improve, be repatriated, according to the I think Interior Ministry Border Affairs chief. But yeah, of course, Iran has opened the borders for now. Pakistan has, of course, said that they're going to keep refugees close to border. And in June, Prime Minister Imran Khan said that Pakistan would actually seal its border with Afghanistan in the event that Taliban took control. That's what's happening with regards to Pakistan. Turkey, on the other hand, has Turkey actually steps up border wall construction, which means that the Turkish president said on Sunday that they're going to help stabilize Afghanistan and prevent a new exodus of refugees from the country. We have United Kingdom, that's the UK, that is supposed to welcome over 20,000 people over several years. And I want to talk about that for a second as well. I want to talk about how UK plans offshore asylum centers in other countries for Afghans. That is definitely something that we are going to be talking about in a second. Right now, though, we're going to be heading off into a little break, so make sure that you keep it tuned right here on Relaks Radio.
Again, but now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about how the generation gap, how much has changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no, if that makes sense.
They can't accept rejection, essentially, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Or you didn't do very well, they get upset. And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, I'd say to me, you had one to forget.
That's it. Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I'd dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. Me. Why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son. or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid, I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Welcome back to the show. A very good day to you. How are you doing? Where are you listening in from? I want to know. Go ahead and let me know by leaving a comment down below. Are you listening in from London? Are you listening in from around the world? Because I did have a couple of you listening in from Asia, from Canada, from Africa. I just want to know where you're listening in from. So go ahead and let me know by either calling me on 07852 473 473, or if you're listening to us on our social media, make sure that you leave a comment down below. And since this is happening live, I can get back to you, have a conversation with you, and talk to you about whatever it is that you want to hear. All right, with that being said, let's get on back into the conversation. And we've been talking about the Afghanistan crisis, right? I was talking to you about how some countries, or where the world stands on the Afghan refugees, and I told you how some countries are offering Afghans that are fleeing their country a safe haven. But I've also told you how a lot of countries are actually fortifying their borders and actually putting up border control. But let's talk about how UK plans offshore asylum centers in other countries for Afghans. Now, Britain actually plans to establish offshore asylum centers for Afghan refugees in countries such as Pakistan, Turkey, and as ministers admit that the UK will not be able to rescue those eligible for resettlement before troops leave Kabul. So that's basically what's happening. At least 1,429 Afghans have been evacuated from Kabul since last Friday, I think. And this is, of course, a part of the Arab relocation scheme that is designed to help interpreters and others who have helped the British during their 20 years in Afghanistan. Now, it is estimated that a similar number or more remain in the country, and that emergency airlift was continuing on Sunday with RAF flights operating despite a crush at the airport gates. And as desperate Afghans, of course, try to flee, NATO actually believes that 20 people have died around the airport last week, but Britain's Armed Forces Minister James Hippie actually says that the flow outside the airport has actually improved because the Taliban were marshalling people into separate queues for the US evacuation and the UK evacuation. So if this is true, I don't know if this is true, but this is, of course, what sources are saying. So if the Taliban are actually, ordering people around in terms of, saying, okay, this is US evacuation, this is UK evacuation, if that's actually happening, that's good. But this is, of course, news that we're getting from the Taliban themselves. Communication has been barred, and a total of 1,700 odd people, 1,721 if I'm not mistaken, Britons, Afghans, and people from allied countries have been evacuated from Kabul on 8 flights in the past 24 hours. Okay, so the British officials are already acknowledged that this is virtually impossible to evacuate people coming from outside Kabul, although Afghans with a claim have told charity workers that they would risk crossing the country if they knew that they had a flight. Now let's go back to talking about how the United Kingdom are to welcome over 20,000 people over several years. This means that the UK on Tuesday announced plans to accept 20,000 Afghan refugees in the coming years as a part of a new resettlement program that will prioritize women, girls, and religious and other minorities, which is amazing to hear. And British Prime Minister, of course, Minister Boris Johnson, said that the government said that 5,000 people would be resettled in the UK within the first year of the program, which has been compared with the previous scheme of the Syrian refugees. So that's, in my opinion, that's definitely some good news. But I do know that there's a lot of you that think that, there's no more space for refugees, especially in the UK or in these other countries. Go ahead and let me know what you're thinking. Do you think that the countries should open up their borders, given the insane, terrible situation that's happening in Afghanistan? Or do you think that the resources with the COVID crisis as well need to be given to the people of that specific country without opening up the borders? What do you think? Go ahead and let me know by leaving a comment down below. I am Jaimmy. This is, of course, the Chat Wrap. We're going to be back in a couple minutes, but up until then, make sure that you keep it tuned right here on Relaks Radio.